for crimes against humanity and for war crimes, and he made a very crude reply to me on television, in point of fact, saying that I was everything from a Holocaust denier to a person who trashed Jackie Kennedy. And in fact, on both those charges, as you know, I can't be indicted, but I eventually got his lawyers to issue an apology about this, and I took it very seriously indeed, and I hate him, and I hate the toadies in the press and in the academy and in publishing who've helped to smooth his path.
You hate him?
Hate them. Hate him. Yeah.
And what's the...
I feel it's an insult that such a person is around, is deferred to, is consulted, is treated with politeness in the academy and by our profession and in the publishing industry. I've said all that.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I met him 2 or 3 times. He's never been induced to speak to me, but he's sometimes had to be in the same room, with evident ill grace. I think, no, that's probably been for me the most long-lasting and deep-going and most hate-based relationship I've had with anybody.
You asked about this book. We did not actually ask you on the program to talk about this book.
I know you didn't, but I'm not going to let you get away with it.
That's fine. No, it's how many copies of hardback did you sell this?
A lot, about 350,000 in hardback.
And the title is God is Not Greatest now in paperback, and what kind of sales do you expect of this?
Oh, I would hope even larger, because the subject has become even more acute than when I didn't broach it. I mean, it broached itself. The battle between civilization and civil society and theocracy is becoming every day much more intense and much more urgent. And the number of people who will come now to a public debate on this, I go to do this kind of debate about twice a week now, is growing all the time. I mean, the audience for the argument is enormous.
Why?
Well, I think for 2 reasons. One is religion is the most interesting subject of all. I mean, if you have a friend or an acquaintance, you know an awful lot about them, depending on whether they attribute their presence in the studio to the laws of biology, the laws of nature, the laws of evolution by natural selection, or whether they think that they're here because of a divine plan. It's a big difference, philosophically, morally. And so going into this means you raise all the most interesting, all the most fundamental, basic questions. That's the first thing. So it's never a boring discussion. And second, or it shouldn't be, and the second is that at the moment, if you open the newspaper and see how the parties of God are behaving around the world, everywhere from Russia to Iran to even certain parts of the United States where they think they ought to influence the education system, that people are, I think, becoming fed up with being pushed around by ordinary mammals who think that they are better than us because they have God on their side. Enough with this. It's very insulting, it's very threatening, it's very stupid, and it's becoming, and now we have the chance that apocalyptic weaponry will fall into the hands of messianic states or organizations, Armageddon-type forces. Clear and present danger.
Did you ever believe in God?
No.
Did your parents?
Yes. They must have done at some point. Well, I think my father probably must have done. I don't know this, because of course I always have this doubt about people who even affirm that they believe in God. Do they believe in it all the time? Do they believe in it every day? Do they never have crises of faith? Why do they have to keep on going to church to prove that they believe? Why isn't it simple to them?
Would you say that
But I mean, my father came from a very strong Baptist family. He must, when he was young, I think, have been a believer.
What about your children?
I wouldn't ask them, nor I hope would they want to ask me. I mean, they shouldn't. Obviously, my children do now know. They have to know what I think, because it's well known. But I would prefer that they did not. I think children should be able to make up their own minds about this. Well, I mean, my youngest daughter, for example, goes to Sidwell Friends School, where they're not made to be Quaker, and where they are taught about other faiths, and so they can make up their own minds. That's all I want for them. I would never dream of imposing it on them, and they really ought not to know what my beliefs are, at least until they're of the age of reason. It's repulsive to me to hear people saying, you know, or to see in the newspaper, a Muslim child was killed, or a Catholic child was killed in Northern Ireland, or a Protestant child. How do we know this about them? What choice did they have in the matter? What I mean is, a child victim of a filthy religious war was killed.
I want to show you a picture that was in our first book notes book, right here.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that
when I was
picture.
still a smoker. Yeah, that's in Timberlake's Bar. I remember it very well.
It is near DuPont Circle, and if you'll notice, this is in the middle of the day. You've got your computer there, you've got a martini on the bar, and you've got a cigarette in your mouth.
And a gut like a, I don't know, sumo wrestler as well.
Would you do that today?
No, I had to give up smoking. Well, I didn't have to, but I made myself give up about 2 years ago.
What about the drinking?
And with the booze, I find it's a better servant than a master.
Explain.
Well, actually, though I say that in that tense, I've always thought that it's very important that it be a master-servant relationship. In other words, that you should get more out of it than it gets out of you. I've found alcohol interesting. It makes other people less boring. It's a great recommendation that it has. Some people can't write or talk or do anything much when they've had a few drinks. Without boasting, I can say that I can, and sometimes that I want to. It can be an inspiration to me. And I know that it can. I know this from friends and from relatives and from one or two episodes in my own life. It can be very bad to have too much to drink. But I have it I still think as a friend and an ally, and not as a boss or a foe.
How do you, this is almost a question for a classroom, but how do you make your money? In other words, if somebody's watching saying, boy, I'd love to live the life of Christopher Hitchens.
And there must be.
No, but when I'd love to have that life of words and writing and speaking and all that. How do you, and can you make a decent living doing what you do?
You can if it's all you want to do. In other words, once you've decided that all you want to be as a writer, and once you've learned that all you need really as a writer is to be able to talk, to speak, to have a voice. Many of my students say, is that all you need? You just have to be able to talk, and I say, yes, but how many of you can? How many of your friends do you enjoy listening to? Really? Do you enjoy listening to yourself? I mean, do you try and talk in sentences? Then they realize it's not so easy. But once you've discovered the joy of that, or in my case, just the fact that I knew was all I could do and never wanted to do, it doesn't matter. I didn't mind when I first came on your show. I made a few $100 out of it, but I knew I was doing what I wanted to do.
You didn't make a few $100 coming on our show. You made a few $100 out of your writing.
No, nothing out of yours. No, you actually to this day.
We pay you with mugs.
You used to not even pay for my cab, but no. But so I knew that I was making a few $100 a month out of writing, but it was what I wanted to do. So there was nothing to. Now I do better, and if you want to know exactly how I do it, it's this. Vanity Fair, the best magazine in the country, in the world, in fact, the English-speaking world, pays me a monthly retainer to write them a column about 10 out of 12 months of the year. And so I know I've got that much. It's not a fortune at all, but it's pretty generous, and I can count on it. The contract is renewed every couple of years or so. And they're fairly decent about letting me write for other people, book reviews, and so forth. And then it's got to the stage now where people will actually pay me to come and talk to them, which is better than I had ever expected. I mean, I'm going to be talking anyway, so to be paid to do it is pretty amazing.
How many speeches a year would you get?
Well, since the religion debate got really going and became a big national argument now, a big cultural question, I would say it's probably twice a week. And I do pro bono speeches, of course, for good causes. The liberation of Iraq, for example, I spent a lot of time arguing in public in favor of the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. Didn't get paid for that.
This book, if there were 300-some thousand copies of this, and you pick up $2-3 a copy, that's pretty good money. I mean, is that? And
then some of my books have done okay, but I used to be box office poison for publishers. I mean, I wrote some books that I was quite proud of, but George Orwell was one I remember, and it didn't really sell at all except among Orwell fans.
This one right
and
here?
then yes, thank you.
I actually found this on the remainder table. I'm sorry to tell you that.
As long as it doesn't have an inscription from me inside saying,
No, it does not.
saying to Angela with undying love or something. I mean,
Well,
I hate it when that happens.